everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching The Political Vigilante. I'm going to bring to the show a returning guest who is a lecturer at law at Yale Law School, doing cybersecurity, and founder of Privacy Lab at Yale, and the chief security officer for Panquake. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean O'Brien.
Hey, happy to be here.
Hey, you sound great.
Good. We spin up machines here all the time, so I just had to do a new setup for you, and thank you to the audience and everyone for dealing with the crackle before.
Yes, thank you. It's really where everyone's kind of used to. There's always something on when I'm a guest on someone's show or someone's on my show. There's always whatever. That stuff always happens. So, folks, we're here with Sean O'Brien, and I wanted to bring you on the show because you are an expert in cybersecurity, and that's why you work with Susie Dawson, who Susie created Panquake. We're going to have Susie on tomorrow to give a Panquake update. And so just to kind of give people a little background about what Getter is, I didn't know that much about it because there's a lot of social media platforms, new ones out there, Rumble and all these other ones. And Joe Rogan has talked about it recently, so a bunch of people have gone over there. Tulsi Gabbard is on it, and because we've all been censored, shadow banned, or just flat out deplatformed or kicked off, or I've been put in Twitter jail by the big ones, Twitter and Facebook, and this show, my YouTube channel has been demonetized for a year, and I've been barely getting by thanks to my audience with Patreon and Rockfin, which I love. And, so everyone's like, oh, Getter's the new platform because Twitter's doing more censorship. But you, because of your area of expertise, have discovered what? Tell us actually what you've discovered and how you've discovered it.
Okay, cool. So this investigation was for talkliberation.com. We do deep dives into tech issues. This is the first one to dig this deeply into both a web and a smartphone app. Basically, we found some pretty shocking stuff, which includes big tech trackers completely across Getter. So that's in the website when you go through your browser, in the smartphone apps when you download them, running in the background from these apps, and so on. The way that we find stuff like this is by doing something called static analysis. So that's sort of like digging into the code and looking for telltale signs, kind of like a virus scanner would, of trackers. So that's the first thing. But as we kept digging, the investigation got bigger and bigger and bigger because there's a number of other major issues with Getter's infrastructure, some security concerns, and so on. One thing which is really problematic, both from a privacy and a security standpoint, Getter connects users to literally dozens of domains at once. So as you're browsing, basically you're connecting to more and more and more domains. And if you were watching the network traffic, you would just see more and more and more connections. So this kind of hot linking, linking directly to content from these other servers is another major issue. Additionally, it's been reported before, but probably doesn't have enough sort of understanding, especially to the million or so people who have gone into Getter in the past week. But this version of Getter that we have is sort of a Getter 2.0. It's based on something called Get to Me or Getome, which is an app that was funded by a Chinese billionaire, targeting Chinese language audience with political content and so on. And that app is actually, or was actually, until at least January 7th, was available for download in Google Play. Now, we downloaded that app. We were able to log into Getter with a Getter username. That app has not been updated since June. So any updates that came through, security, moderation rules, that kind of thing, in Getter since June, which is slightly predating the Getter launch, which was 4th of July, that stuff was not in the Get to Me app. So essentially, this is a backdoor into the Getter network. Could be used for all kinds of things like bots and so on. And if you'll look across Twitter, you'll see plenty of people complaining about bots, or at least what seems to be automated content. So that's a quick summary, but there's a lot more to dig into. So let me know what you're interested in.
Okay, so the first thing that you discovered, explain to us what that is and why that's problematic.
Sure. Well, first off, it's completely disingenuous, right? So Getter is, and the CEO, Jason Miller, especially, is going on television, putting in all their marketing materials, putting in the description of the app when you download it, that you're breaking away from big tech, breaking away from Silicon Valley. I believe they call it the Silicon Valley Mafia, which, you know, this is the kind of thing I'm likely to agree with. But you're not actually breaking away from them. So you have data tracking happening from both Google and Facebook, feeding into the same machines you would get through Google Analytics elsewhere on Google products, through Facebook as well. There's a Facebook pixel that's embedded in both the website and the apps. And you're additionally getting this tracking from Getter. Now, Getter also embeds some other third-party, lesser-known data brokers. One of them is particularly aggressive. That's called AppsFlyer. And that sort of tracks people, well, it does track people via both browser fingerprinting, watching behavior, so like what you click on, how much you dwell on a certain profile, that sort of thing is behavioral tracking. And, you know, most poignant to me, location tracking, right? So when I'm walking around, if I'm using Getter, my smartphone is basically sending my location data to fine-grained location data to this tracker, and therefore Getter.
So Getter is claiming to be not in league with the Silicon Valley Mafia, but then uses all of the Silicon Valley Mafia's technology and websites and everything and tracking.
That's correct. So, and, you know, right before joining the show, if you guys want to check out my profile, which unfortunately is on Twitter and not on Panquake yet, but if you go to Sean O. Diggity, you'll see a thread that we have in response to Getter CEO responding to the report. And our response points out that the CEO, Jason Miller, actually verified our claims in, you know, the things that he said. So there was no denial that there's Google and Facebook in there. There's no denial that the infrastructure is based on things like Amazon AWS. There was no denial. There was just basically dodging of any major security questions, and so on and so forth. So from the horse's mouth now. So we know that the investigation we did was proper, was conducted well, and true. So
it's like when you find out, like, you know, one of these, like, oh, this all natural juice is made by Coca-Cola or something. Right. You know, you're just like, oh, McDonald's owns Chipotle. Oh, great. Like, exactly. Man. So, and the other thing, and I was just doing a little research before the interview today, that it was sort of revealed in some mainstream media when Getter was launched in July, that it is sort of, or I don't know, and you can speak to this better, but like that it's not just, they're doing data collection for Trump running in 2024, right?
Yeah. So I try not to get into the politics. We do talk a little bit, of course, about the origins, which are inherently political. The Get to Me and then Getter 2.0, whatever you want to call it, the current version of Getter, were founded by Trump political staff senior advisor, who's Jason Miller, and also some other folks in orbit around the White House administration under Trump, and promote and push Steve Bannon's content very strongly. This content is, you know, it takes up about a third of the interface in Getter. So you're constantly bombarded with it when you're there, et cetera, et cetera. Interesting, and a technical note, I guess, that sort of goes into this. The first version of the app was actually made by a developer called vMaga. So when you upload your app, you get to just say what your name is, and it said vMaga. And the email address was pray for 2022, and that's at Gmail. So, and I can disclose that because they put it up in there. So make from that what you will. If this is not a political operation, you know, it's tough to say what else it is. So.
Yeah, and it's just so suspect, man. Because I mean, first of all, they're using big tech, so it's, and they're just creating this to track, and they're hoping that they get, you know, lefty activists or libertarians or whatever over there. And Steve, you want to be a conservative, that's fine. That's fine. Steve Bannon's a fascist. He can go fuck himself. Like, I'll just say that flat out. I'm very critical of the Democratic Party, but Steve Bannon can suck it. And I just like this in the same way. And since most of my audience is pretty left leaning, if we found out this getter was actually funded by someone that formerly worked with the Clinton White House or Obama, I'd feel the same way. Like they're just trying to, oh, great, Hillary wants to run again in 2024. It's the same evil group using the Silicon Valley mafia, as they called it. It's so great that they've now named their own crimes. It's wow. It shows you why. I guess I'm going to have a lengthier conversation with Susie tomorrow on this show about the updates of Panquake. But for right now, for our purposes, it's another reason why Panquake is all the more important, because every time one of these companies comes along and they try to sell us that they're outside the system, they're not. I mean, this is Trump's. That was his pitch. I'm outside the system. Well, he's a billionaire. He gets the same funding from everybody else. He's friends with the Clintons. Like, I mean, like it's nonsense. And even this, and when it's like, whenever I hear the term bipartisan, I'm like, run. It's like, both Hillary and Trump have come out and said their Bitcoin's bad. Well, buy Bitcoin. That's the biggest reason you should buy Bitcoin. If those two are saying don't do it, because it's going to undermine their authority. It's like I'm watching the Maxwell trial, and they revealed 118 new flight logs came out. In it showed Trump was on Epstein's plane 4 more times than was originally known. Originally, there was just 1. So now there's a total of 5 flights that Trump was on. And not even MSNBC or CNN is screaming about this. Mm-hmm. That's alarming to me. They've got damning evidence of Trump being on Epstein's plane 4 more times, and they're not screaming about it, because ultimately it's about those in power and the ruling elites that control big tech and control the media, want to keep the Epstein story quiet. And you got to be so leery when anyone comes in and says we're outside the system and they're a part of the system or they worked in the system. The only time I can trust somebody is like when they do something like what Paula Jean Swearingen did and left the Democratic Party to join the People's Party. Like when they do something like that, like Ray McGovern, John Kiriakou whistleblows the CIA, goes to jail for it, then I can trust him. But if they're just still like, we're going to reform, we're the new branch of the CIA, the cuddly version of the CIA. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's insane. It's cherry Coke Zero. Right. Oh, that's all you're giving me. Right. And I mean, talk to a little bit about, and again, I know I'm going to go in a lengthier conversation with Susie tomorrow, but because you're involved in the construction of Panquake, and why Panquake is so important, and tell us how Panquake does not do any of these awful things that Gitter is doing, and how you've set it up to where it cannot do those things. That's the thing I love. You guys have set it up to where it's like you can't do it.
Exactly. So, I mean, the first thing to note, and a couple of these things around Getter's origin, we do have a section of that in the talkliberation.com report on this, because it really is important to get. Bannon not only, of course, was a political operative and has a lot of influence, and now, of course, has many more eyeballs, but was involved directly with Cambridge Analytica. He was a board member and vice president of Cambridge Analytica, about 50 million profiles that were scraped basically to target political ads, to do profiling, to do all that nasty stuff, which it very much seems, if you believe our report, and it's been verified now by Getter themselves, Getter is also doing. So that whole setup already is scary enough, right? But the other thing is, it takes time to build innovative, disruptive, cool things that are going to break out of the mold that we're in right now. And Getter was basically rolled overnight by dumping a database from this old Getame app and just relaunching it with a rebranded interface and not even getting rid of the old app, still mixing and matching both infrastructure and the app. So that's the sloppy way to do it. What we're doing with Panquake is we're building real changes to the architecture of social networks. Okay, so we're building a peer-to-peer network. We have the ability already for peers to talk and verify each other. Okay. We have a user store that's a personal user store on the clients, that what they call the client, which is like your smartphone or your laptop or whatever you use to access Panquake. Any data that's remotely personal is going to be on your device. We don't want it. You can have it. That's your data, and you should have it, right? So that architectural choice, of course, means we can't do the kinds of surveillance which would get us, ad revenue and money from analytics and profiles and so on. But it does mean that we're really serious about protecting users, respecting users, et cetera, et cetera. As we go on, of course, and I've seen some people in the comments, thank you, you've supported Panquake in the past. I hope you'll consider doing it as we continue here. We're transparent, month to month, doing these delivery meetings where we talk about the progress we're making. That progress is going exponential. We have the beginnings of a user interface on top of all this cool backend stuff I'm talking about. So we're moving along at pace, and obviously, the more funding we can get, the faster we can do it. But we're doing it in a grassroots way for a reason. So we're building trust both by the architectural design, by releasing all that source code as free and open source software, so it can be audited and so on and so forth, which we will do when we release. And we also are being transparent throughout the process. This report, I hope, also shows that the people working to build Panquake.com really understand privacy and security. So these are things in the report for Getter we are definitely not going to do, right? That's really it. It's about being honest with your audience. It's about building so that the technology itself can be quote unquote trustless, so that you don't have to trust us. You can verify for yourself, for example, in the blockchain record, how many followers you have. So you'll know your follower statistics. You'll know that the post that was posted to the blockchain is your post and the words in it were this, and so on and so forth. None of this wacky manipulation, which, by the way, has turned people off the most, I think, in Getter. We're just starting to talk about the privacy and security issues, but Joe Rogan, either today or yesterday with Tim Dillon, was turned off by the fact, and should be very much so, that when content is imported into Getter from Twitter, the follower account goes with it. So Rogan had like 8.9 million followers in Getter, but there's a little over 4 million followers or total people in the Getter network. So that shows how disingenuous the whole thing is. When content's imported, from Twitter, there's no like visual cues or anything that these are old conversations that may be out of context or not linked to things and missing, replies and who the hell knows what. So even Joe Rogan, and I think he respectfully, he looked at it. He's been used sort of by Getter and all the promotion is, oh, Joe Rogan's terrible because pulling all these people in together. He corrected that and said, look, that's sketchy. I don't even know how to remove myself. So we'll see if he's able to, and what that's going to mean for the million or so users that have followed after Rogan talked about it last week. So,
well, good for Rogan for just doing the right thing and not getting caught up in because it's easy to get caught up in. He goes, I want to go to Getter, and then everyone says, oh, Joe Rogan's a whatever, you love Trump or he's not whatever, and to the first reaction I would have is, oh, fuck you, who did to tell me what to go? I'll go wherever I can. But then you go over, then you realize, oh, this ain't right. So regardless of the criticisms of why he went over there, whatever, it's the technology is, like you say, it's disingenuous. And now I'm glad it sounds like he's pulling out of there and doesn't want to be a part of it. What has, since you've put this out on Talk Liberation, and you have a lengthy thread, and I encourage everybody to go to Sean's Twitter and read the detail of this. What have you, other than the response from the creator of Getter? I mean, what else have you heard from anybody there? Like, what is the response been to this Talk Liberation thread? This article.
Well, so it's pretty fresh off the press this morning. What I can say is that, our report is going viral. So it's going to be covered by some pretty major news outlets, and, sky's the limit from there. It shows how interested people actually are in this topic. Just like all those people who have been used and abused by big tech and say, okay, there's a new thing over here, let me jump to it. They also want to know, if that thing is, not doing what they say they're doing. So it's really important and actually shocking what the reach has been. I think we're doing something really good for the public, which is the intent. And I hope we can do more of it. There certainly is no limit on the amount of malfeasance, let's say, going on the internet, from basic cybercrime stuff through to this sort of institutionalized organizational grabbing of data and analyzing it. So yeah, it's a big deal, and I'm pretty psyched. I want to say, though, thank you, Graham, for having me. This will be the first video, certainly, to talk about this. So that's great.
Awesome, man. Well, I don't know, where do you see this
Where do
going?
we see Getter going? Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So I have some experience with these sort of social networks that are clones of Twitter, clones of Facebook, and so on. There's been a lot of them over the years, and some of them with very good intent who aren't doing the kinds of things Getter is doing, right? But one of the problems that I see, and I really feel deeply about this, is that these clone networks that are truly clones don't give users new and innovative features. There's no reason for users to stay in those networks. A bunch of profiles are created, they're really active, and there's a lot of buzz around it, and maybe they have a good PR team and millions, or let's say billions of dollars, I don't know, to put into this kind of push, and to build out this huge infrastructure and so on. But after a while, people do, those accounts go dormant. That becomes an also ran network for people, not the place they want to primarily be. And I think actually, whatever goes on, and I hope Getter actually corrects their ways, and looks at the report seriously and takes very seriously our response to their response. We're trying very hard to disclose in a way that is respectful and responsible and so on. I hope they'll change some of this stuff, but even if that happens, it's a real open question how many people, A, are going to want to stay in this network, and B, are going to want to be bombarded with, like I said, about a third of the interface, with Bannon and Miller and conservative celebrities, let's say. There's an audience for that, sure, and that's great, but you're not going to have the kind of global conversation that I think needs to happen in a network like that.
Right, especially when they purport themselves to be like, freedom of speech, and it's like, no, if you're just going to make it only one side, or conservatives or Trump 24 or whatever, that's not, you're not having an open forum. You're not doing that. You're just doing more echo chamber crap while stealing people's data. So it's like, all right, Sean, well, tell us again where people can go read the full report.
Sure. So go to talkliberation.com. You can also go to talkliberation.com/getter, GTTR. Don't put that extra E in there. I almost made that mistake many times. And that'll go out to that report. And we're pretty easy to find these days. I should also note, coincidentally, the morning when this story broke, and we don't know how much it's related or not, it's probably unrelated. It seems our @Pancake account has been restored on Twitter. So you can actually, find, we're going to be obviously talking about this a lot, retweeting and so on at the Twitter handle @Pancake. So check that out.
Excellent. And for those of you watching, tomorrow, Wednesday, 1 o'clock Pacific time, 4 o'clock Eastern, I'm going to have Susie Dawson on to give us an update on everything Pancake is doing, where it's at, and what they need to finish it. But Sean, thank you so much. I mean, good work, man, for going into this and digging and finding out what this is. It's like we all got to be very leery. We all want to find the new, oh, this will be the savior, and so often it is not.
Well, thank you so much. Talking about it, being able to talk about it so freely, it makes the late nights very worth it. So
yeah, I can only imagine how much work you all have put into that. Well, Sean O'Brien, thank you so much. Follow him, you guys. Go follow him. Go to Talk Liberation and read this whole report. So you're informed. So when you see anybody in social media going, yo, get her, it's the new. No, it's not. No, it's not. They're doing the same old tricks that everybody else does. You can wrap it in whatever packaging you want to wrap it in, but a Twinkie's still a Twinkie. You know what I mean? Put it in green wrapper and it's the eco-friendly Twinkie. No, it's not. There's no such thing. All right, Sean, thank you so much, man. Thanks for coming back on the show, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Sean O'Brien, everybody. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood. And go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a PO box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.